Once upon a time, nestled in a valley surrounded by rolling green hills, there was a small, cheerful village. The villagers were kind and hard-working, and among them lived a young shepherd boy named Peter. Every morning, Peter would take his flock of fluffy white sheep up to the hills to graze. The sun would shine, the birds would sing, and the sheep would happily munch on the sweet grass. But, Peter was often very bored. Watching sheep all day wasn't nearly as exciting as he wished it would be. He longed for adventure, for something thrilling to happen. The other villagers would go about their busy days, farming and baking and building, while Peter just sat on a grassy knoll, watching his sheep. The most exciting part of his day was when a fluffy cloud looked like a dragon, or when he found a particularly smooth stone to skip across the nearby pond. One sunny afternoon, as he sat under a large oak tree, an idea popped into his head. It was a mischievous idea, a silly idea. But to a bored shepherd boy, it seemed like the most brilliant plan in the world. He thought, what if I play a little trick on the villagers? It would be so funny to see them all come running. So he took a deep breath, cupped his hands around his mouth, and shouted as loudly as he could, "Wolf! Wolf! A wolf is chasing the sheep!" His voice echoed down the hills and into the valley. The villagers below heard his desperate cries. They dropped their tools, left their homes, and grabbed whatever they could: pitchforks, shovels, and brooms. They were worried about Peter and the precious sheep. They huffed and puffed as they raced up the steep hill. "Where's the wolf, Peter? Are you all right?" they called out as they reached the top, ready to defend the flock. But when they got there, they saw no wolf. They only saw Peter sitting under the tree, laughing so hard that tears were rolling down his cheeks. The sheep were grazing peacefully, completely unaware of any danger. "I tricked you. I tricked you all." Peter giggled. "There's no wolf?" The villagers were not amused. They were tired from running up the hill and annoyed that they had been fooled. An old farmer shook his head and said, "Peter, that was not a funny joke. We were worried. You shouldn't cry wolf when there is no wolf." The other villagers grumbled in agreement and trudged back down the hill, feeling frustrated and a little bit silly. Peter felt a tiny bit bad, but his boredom quickly returned. A few days later, the sun was shining just as brightly. The sheep were munching just as happily, and Peter was feeling just as bored as before. The memory of the villagers' panicked faces made him chuckle again. He decided to do it one more time. It was just too fun to resist. Again, he took a huge breath and yelled, "Wolf! Wolf! Help! The wolf is back!" His voice carried all the way to the village once more. Down below, the villagers heard him. Some of them hesitated. "Is he tricking us again?" one asked, but another replied, "What if it's real this time? We have to go and check." And so, once again, they dropped everything and ran up the hill. They arrived at the top, out of breath and ready for a fight, only to find the exact same scene as before. Peter was rolling on the grass, holding his stomach because he was laughing so hard. The sheep were safe and sound. "You fell for it again," he shouted gleefully. This time, the villagers were truly angry. "Peter," one of them said sternly, This is not a game. We will not be fooled by you again. If you keep lying, no one will believe you when you're actually telling the truth." They turned and marched back down the hill, their faces grim and their trust in Peter completely gone. Peter watched them go, his laughter slowly fading. He didn't quite understand how serious they were. He thought it was all just a harmless prank. He settled back down under his tree, and the afternoon passed slowly, just like all the others. Then, one evening, as the sun began to set, casting long, spooky shadows across the hills, Peter saw something that made his heart stop. Peeking out from behind a thicket of bushes were two glowing yellow eyes. Then a long, gray snout appeared, followed by a large, furry body. It was a real wolf, and it was big, and it looked very, very hungry. The wolf crept out of the bushes, its eyes fixed on the plump, unsuspecting sheep. Peter's heart hammered against his ribs. He was terrified. This wasn't a joke anymore. This was real danger. He scrambled to his feet, his hands trembling. He opened his mouth and screamed with all his might, his voice filled with genuine fear. "Wolf, wolf! There's a real wolf! Please, help me! Help!" he shouted again and again, his voice cracking with panic. "Wolf! Help! It's real this time. I promise." His cries echoed down into the valley, reaching the village just as they had before. But this time, no one moved. The villagers heard him, but they just shook their heads. "Oh, that's just Peter trying to trick us again," said one. "He won't fool me a third time," said another. They simply continued with their evening chores, ignoring the desperate pleas coming from the hill. They thought it was just another one of his silly games. Up on the hill, Peter watched in horror as the wolf leaped into the flock. The sheep scattered in a panic, bleating in terror. Peter felt helpless. He screamed for help one last time, but no one came. He knew he was all alone. He had to do something. So he grabbed his shepherd's crook and waved it wildly, trying to scare the wolf away. But the wolf was not afraid of one small boy. It chased the sheep into the woods until they were all gone from sight. As darkness fell, a tearful and terrified Peter ran down the hill to the village. The wolf, it came. It was real, he cried to the first person he saw. It chased all the sheep away. "Why didn't you come?" The old farmer who had warned him before looked at him with a sad expression. "We heard you, Peter," he said softly, "but we didn't believe you. You lied to us twice. No one believes a liar, even when they are telling the truth." Peter finally understood. His silly pranks had not been harmless at all, because he had cried wolf when there was no wolf. No one was there to help him when the danger was real. He had lost his flock of sheep, and, even worse, he had lost the trust of everyone in his village. From that day on, Peter was a much sadder, but much, much wiser boy. He never told a lie again. And that's the story of the boy who cried wolf. It reminds us that it's always important to tell the truth, because trust is a very precious thing, and once it's lost, it can be very hard to get back. Thanks for watching.